You know that moment when a cat walks into the room, ignores everyone, doesn't try to impress, and somehow you feel more drawn to it than anything else there? Like you don't even question it, you just get it. It's quiet, subtle, almost unexplainable. Most people would just say you like cats and leave it there. But if you really sit with that feeling for a second, it starts to reveal something deeper, because it's not just about the cat. It's about what that moment reflects back to you. Here's what makes this interesting. Psychologists have been quietly observing patterns in human behavior for years, and one of the more overlooked ones shows up in the kind of energy people feel comfortable around. Not just people, but environments, interactions, and even animals. What they found is that what you're naturally drawn to often mirrors how your mind prefers to operate. So when you find yourself connecting with something quiet, independent, and emotionally selective, that's not random. It's recognition. Now, to where it gets psychologically interesting, and honestly a bit counterintuitive, people who are naturally drawn to cats often have a different relationship with attention, not in a negative way, and not in a way that means you don't like people. It's just different. You don't need constant interaction to feel connected. You don't rely on noise to feel engaged. And you don't feel comfortable in spaces where attention feels forced or performative. Cats exist in that same space. They don't chase validation. They don't adjust themselves just to be liked. They don't perform for approval. They simply exist as they are. And something about that feels familiar to you. Here's the part most people overlook. Cats don't give affection automatically. They choose when to come close, and they choose when to stay. And when they do, it feels intentional. There's no pressure behind it, no expectation attached to it, just presence. If you're someone who values that, it often means you see connection differently. You're not looking for constant reassurance. You're not measuring relationships by how often someone shows up. You're paying attention to how real it feels when they do. You don't want attention that's given out of habit. You want connection that actually means something. Anyway, this is where it starts to connect with something deeper, your mental energy. Because if you really observe yourself, you might notice that environments with too much noise, too many conversations, or too many expectations don't just tire you physically, they drain you mentally. Not because you don't enjoy people, but because your mind is processing more than it shows. Every tone shift, every subtle reaction, every unspoken tension in a room, you're picking up on it, even if you don't consciously realize it. Your brain is constantly scanning, interpreting, adjusting. And over time, that kind of awareness comes with a cost. You get tired in a way that's hard to explain. And this is where things become really interesting. Instead of seeking more stimulation, you start valuing less of it. Not because you want isolation, but because you want clarity. You want space where your thoughts can settle, where your attention isn't constantly being pulled in different directions. You begin to prefer environments where nothing is being forced, where silence isn't awkward, and where you don't have to explain your mood or your need for space. And that's exactly what cats represent: presence without pressure. If this is resonating with you so far, you might enjoy exploring more psychology like this. Subscribing helps this reach people who quietly feel the same way but haven't been able to put it into words yet. Now, there's another layer to this that people rarely talk about. Cat lovers tend to be more comfortable with emotional boundaries. Not walls, not distance, but boundaries. There's a difference. You don't feel the need to be available all the time. You don't feel obligated to respond instantly or engage constantly. And more importantly, you don't expect others to do that for you either. You understand that closeness doesn't require constant access. That kind of emotional independence is something psychologists often connect to self-regulation, the ability to manage your internal state without constantly relying on external validation. And honestly, not everyone develops that. But here's something even more subtle. If you love cats, there's a strong chance you're more observant than you realize. You notice things that others overlook. A small shift in someone's mood, a slight change in tone, a pause that feels heavier than it should. You pick up on what isn't being said. And over time, that shapes how you connect with people. Because once you become aware of those subtle signals, surface-level interaction starts to feel incomplete. You begin to crave something deeper, something more honest, something that doesn't require performance. This doesn't mean you're antisocial, and it doesn't mean you're distant or disconnected. If anything, it often means the opposite. It means your inner world is active, reflective, and constantly processing. You feel things deeply. You just don't always express them loudly. And in a world that often rewards loudness, that can feel confusing. And honestly, this is where a lot of people begin to misunderstand themselves, because the world tends to push a very specific idea of what connection should look like. Constant interaction, fast responses, big social circles, high energy engagement. So if you don't naturally align with that, it's easy to start questioning yourself. You might wonder if you're too quiet, too reserved, or too detached. But psychology tells a very different story. People who are comfortable with quieter forms of connection often have higher levels of self-awareness. They're not avoiding people, they're just more selective with their energy. They're not chasing interaction for the sake of it. They're looking for alignment. They're filtering, not withdrawing, choosing depth over frequency and meaning over noise. And here's something that doesn't get talked about enough. When you're comfortable being alone, your relationships change, not because you care less, but because you stop needing them to fill something in you. You approach people from a place of wholeness, not absence, and that shifts everything. You become more intentional, more present, and more genuine, because you're not trying to hold on to every connection. You're choosing the ones that actually matter. So, if you've ever felt like you connect more with a quiet animal than with loud environments full of people, it may not be random, it may not be something to fix, it may be a reflection of how your mind naturally works, a sign that you're wired for a different kind of connection. And if this gave you a new way to understand yourself, you can subscribe for more ideas like this. There's a lot more to explore about how subtle preferences reveal deeper psychological patterns. Because sometimes what you're drawn to isn't just preference, it's recognition, a quiet reflection of your boundaries, your emotional depth, and your need for space that feels real, not forced. And once you start seeing it that way, something shifts. You stop questioning why you don't fit into certain spaces. You stop trying to force yourself into patterns that drain you. You begin to understand that your way of connecting isn't less, it's just different. Sometimes understanding a pattern about yourself doesn't immediately change your behavior, but it changes how you see yourself. And once that shifts, everything else slowly begins to follow. Because in the end, it was never just about liking cats. It was about recognizing a part of yourself that prefers quiet over noise, depth over surface, and presence over performance. And if this resonated with you, you can subscribe for more quiet insights like this.